The dark of sleep was usually a friend of mine, only showing me nightmares on the rarest of occasions. The nightmare of my dying sent shivers down my body as I recalled it, but I knew that it was only a dream. Would I have one like that again? I hope not, because otherwise I'm sensing a pattern of bad dreams and beings, going into our dreams to haunt us and stuff. It's not a good thing. Would I have no choice in the matter if another came? That was another story. Well, this is different. I opened my eyes to find myself in the mouth of a cave that descended beneath the earth. Behind and above me was a bright light where I could see my friends and family. However, as I looked down into the darkness, I caught the sight of Sam walking away further into the cave. Sam? He didn't answer. Sam continued forward, losing himself in the dark. I instantly began to follow, forgetting about the light for a moment before stopping and looking back. My family had a look of despair, while my friends held each other, watching me with heartbroken faces. Was this some sort of message? Was I following Sam into a place my friends and family could not be in? Was this my future, or a possibility about my future? I became torn. What was I going to do?
You are not worthy.
Oh? All of a sudden, the darkness became full of fire, and the bare outline of Sam flashed before burning away in the light of the flames. He couldn't even let out a scream of pain as he was instantly burnt to ash. Sam!
Run! Run!
Diana's voice echoed through the air, but I was frozen in place watching the flames rush at me to take me as well. If I ran back, my heart would be scarred forever with the memory of flames taking my love away. If I stayed, I would die with Sam. I stood in the middle, unsure of what to do. As the flames took me, I woke up in a hot sweat. Gah! Gripping the covers, I sat up, staring at the far wall before looking around. My heart was beating wildly as sweat ran down my cheeks and the sides of my head. Another horrible nightmare. This time, however, Sam woke up with me.
Whoa! Hey, what's wrong?
A lot. I looked to Sam, seeing him not burnt or his ashes, but perfectly okay. I turned toward him and wrapped my arms around him tightly, now desperate not to let him go. Sam, despite being surprised, wrapped his arms around me and held me close. 2 nightmares, both leaving me and Sam engulfed in flames. I died in the first, he died in the second. What was I going to believe anymore? Sam rubbed my back gently and planted a kiss on my shoulder.
Hey, it's okay, alright? It was a stupid nightmare.
I don't know about that, man. But you died.
You know I can handle anything that comes my way.
Could he really? He was strong and he was fast, but was he powerful enough to withstand whatever had let loose those flames to swallow him whole? I assume this was supposed to be like a flashback. You are not worthy. What did the voice mean? How was Sam not worthy? What was he not worthy of? There were a million questions running through my mind, and none of them could be answered, at least not at that moment. I simply rested my head on Sam's chest and let him pull us back down to the bed to sleep.
Whatever happens, I'll always be here. Alright?
I nodded and closed my eyes, praying that I would not see the nightmare again. As fate was kind once more, I slept peacefully the remainder of the night. I slowly woke from my sleep, feeling the ache of the morning consume and rush through my body relentlessly in an attempt to keep me contained in bed. I didn't mind. I was pressed against a warm chest, one whose arms I adored to be in. The nightmare plagued my thoughts, but my heart fluttered in reality, knowing that what I was feeling in the physical world was what I was supposed to care about. I looked up at Sam's sleeping face, giggling at the sight of his messy bed hair. Sam slowly woke from the sound of my laughter, blinking the sleep away to stare down at me.
Morning.
Morning. I smiled and kissed Sam on the lips to help rouse him, only to end up being pulled into a tight and loving embrace with my head buried in his shoulder.
Did you sleep okay?
The second time, yeah. Sam nodded in understanding against my shoulder as I wrapped my arms around him. I felt so warm and safe within the confines of his embrace that the thoughts of the nightmare I had vanished from my mind. It would come back, but it was gone for now. Kiss him again. I pulled back a bit and kissed Sam once again, smiling happily and running my fingers along his back. Sam gently squeezed me and kissed me back, melting into the embrace between us. Morning kisses with Sam felt wonderful, and I didn't want to get up or pull away. I simply desired to relish in the feelings I had for Sam and let him completely take over my thoughts.
Hey.
Yeah?
Since we're in the demon world, do you think that... maybe...
Uh-huh. I opened my eyes to look over his shoulder, trying to understand what he was insinuating. When it finally came to me, I held my breath in realization. The demon marriage?
You don't have to decide right now, but before we go back, maybe think about it.
Blech. I wasn't sure what to say. My mind danced across the idea of binding my soul to Sam, but at what cost? I'll think about it. I'd like to have some more details, though, before I make a choice. We need to talk some more about this. Sam nodded in understanding, kissing my shoulder. I knew it was something Sam really wanted, but was it something I was willing to go through? Sam gently loosened his embrace and pulled away to look at me with a tired smile.
I don't want to get up yet.
I knew this was how Sam operated in the morning. Same. He was definitely not a morning person. Same. So seeing him curl up to me and ask permission to stay in bed was still an endearing sight that reminded me how much I loved him. My heart warmed as I smiled and kissed his forehead. Mwah. Then we don't have to. We can sleep a little longer if we want. Sam smiled and closed his eyes, pulling me against his chest with a hearty chuckle.
Good. We can go eat later.
Our peace was broken, unfortunately, by the sound of knocking at our door. Sam and I let out a simultaneous groan. Our plan was ruined.
Go away!
Sam, we brought breakfast.
Food.
We'll eat later!
Are you seriously going to argue with me?
Poor James. He's always just 1,000% done with Sam.
Come on, it's like 9 a.m.
9 a.m. is way too early. Now I was getting upset. I wanted to stay in bed, feel Sam's arms around me for a little while longer. Was that so much to ask? Screw breakfast. We have 3 more hours until noon.
Oh my god, just get up already. We're burning daylight here.
Sam and I whined, now irritated that our plans to sleep in became ultimately impossible. However, we both understood that today was a new day, and we had to start preparing to take on the Demon Lord. I slowly rose and sat up in bed, yawning as Sam begrudgingly followed suit. All right, come in. The door opened, and in poured the Incubi Brothers and their wives, carrying a plate of food each. James and Iridessa held out their 2 extra plates for me and Sam.
Thanks, Dessa.
You're welcome, Sparky.
Sparky. I like that. Thank you, James.
Of course.
James and Iridessa moved away from us as we both looked down at our plates. On it were fruit slices, bread, cheese, and some form of jerky I didn't recognize. It was probably safe, knowing that the others were eating it as well. Sam, however, lowered his plate to his lap and looked up at his brothers.
So, what's the plan?
Well, we should probably take the next couple of days to train properly. Since we're in Lilith Castle, we'll have access to training equipment.
Lilith Castle? This place has a name? The boys and Irene, Eric's wife, nodded in reply. Sam stuffed a stick of jerky in his mouth and began to chew on it as Damien began to explain.
The first succubus, Lilith, was exiled here after being cast out of Eden by the heavens. She became a demon and soon began to breed more incubi and succubi than the world could control.
Wait, Lilith as in Lilith from the Bible? I don't think that story is actually part of the Bible canon, though, if I remember correctly. At least I'm pretty sure.
Yes. During her time here, she established a kingdom with this very castle at its heart.
It's a pretty castle indeed. I've never had the pleasure of coming here.
So what's your story, Irene? How come you were like, yup, whereas like all the other wives didn't nod when we talked about Lilith Castle?
Meh, I'm not really a fan of it.
It doesn't do it for me, you know? Sam swallowed the bite of jerky he had in his mouth and licked his lips, joining the conversation.
Alright, so we train until we can't anymore.
Obviously, we'll need breaks in between, but we can't afford to let a day go by without intense training. We only have a week after all.
Yeah. Worry began to bubble back into my mind. Everyone was willing to step up and start training, but Eric was right. We only had a week to prepare for the Demon Lord. Would we be strong enough in time?
You fear too soon, child.
I feel like I should know who this is, but why do you sound so familiar? Huh? I straightened up my back and looked around, hearing the voice from my dream echo through the air. Everyone else looked at me curiously, wondering why I spoke up.
Wait, what?
Did you say something?
I looked around at everyone, seeing their confused faces. Did they not hear the voice?
They cannot hear me, child.
I shook my head, rubbing it gently with a nervous laugh. Sorry. I thought I missed something. Don't be a Deanna. Just tell people when something's going on, please. The confusion in everyone's faces dissipated as everyone got back to the topic at hand, one I couldn't remember or focus on. My thoughts went back to the voice, wondering how it was speaking to me and how it knew what I was thinking.
I am closer than you imagine.
What do you mean?
Be patient, child. The time for answers will come soon enough.
I grew more and more concerned and confused. What was the spirit talking about?
I am no mere spirit.
Why does this keep happening? Then what are you?
That I cannot tell you yet. When the time comes, you will know.
This was mildly scary. A voice in my head was speaking to me, and I could only speak back in my thoughts without anyone knowing what was going on. I looked around to see everyone still speaking to each other, but I couldn't focus on what they were saying. All I could focus on was the voice in my head.
Answers will come when the time is right. For now, I will bid you farewell.
Wait!
Whoa, wait, what?
Poor Sam. I didn't realize I spoke aloud until everyone looked to me again. I looked at Damien, wondering if he heard everything going on in my head, but he seemed just as confused, if not more so than the others. Interesting.
You alright?
Tell them, please. They had to know what was going on. Yes? Well, I just heard this voice in my head.
Huh?
A voice in your head? But I didn't hear any other voice but yours.
Did it sound like anyone you know?
I shook my head, remembering the sound of it. It was deep and echoey, masking any relatable trace from it. For all I knew, it was some sort of illusionary creation of my own mind. Then again, if I created it, then Damien would have been able to hear it. I rubbed my head. It was some sort of deep voice, telling me to be patient and not to be afraid. It wouldn't tell me its name. I became worried about everyone thinking that I was crazy. I knew I wasn't, but I definitely sounded like someone who wasn't mentally there. Sam, however, wrapped an arm around me and hugged me to his side.
Well, whoever that voice is, it's right. There's nothing to be afraid of.
I wouldn't be too sure about that just yet.
Everyone in the room turned their heads to see Diana and Sarah standing at the door. Diana stepped further into the room as Sarah stood at attention, watching her.
You five have been gone during the 10 years of this war. You do not seriously believe that you will be ready for this in a mere week, do you?
At least we're finally addressing that particular thing. Diana seemed firm and serious. I could understand why, but a part of me felt a bit angry that she shut down our pep talk. Sam glared at Diana.
And if we do?
Then it is a foolish mistake.
How so?
10 years of absence can be unkind to one's abilities.
To be fair, it has only been 2 years for us.
Oh, that's true.
Regardless, when was the last time any of you actually fought in battle?
Silence consumed the room. She was right. However, we weren't willing to give up that easily. I stood and placed my plate on the bed behind me. Why does it matter? We're going to defeat the Demon Lord either way.
We will. But there is no reason to try and breed ideas of false hope that it will be easy. Too many lives have been lost in this war, with the hope that they'll all survive. It's better to be realistic.
The tone of her voice echoed a heavy warning. No doubt she had seen hundreds or thousands of deaths in the war firsthand, but now was not the time to doubt ourselves. Sam stood up as well, standing at my side in defiance.
Fuck that! If you're right, then hope's the only thing we got.
Sarah stepped up to Diana's side, giving Sam a blank stare in return for his mistress.
Hope can only take you so far. Do you truly believe it will help you defeat the Demon Lord?
I felt Sam take my hand and nod, affirming his words. I smiled and squeezed his hand, agreeing. Sarah and Diana stared at us, with Diana crossing her arms. Something was on Diana's mind as she stared at Sam just from looking in her eyes. What was it?
Can you say that with confidence?
I can. Want me to?
Not to derail the topic, but this is a waste of time. We should be preparing for war, not bickering about if we can or not.
Yeah, whether you can or you can't, you're still gonna do all you can, so it's kind of a moot point at this point. A moment of silence passed through the room as Diana stared at Sam sternly. However, she was distracted, distant from the conversation, as if she was stalling time to have her thoughts wander. Almost keeping her real attention.
Well, I'm not going to argue about this. Believe what you wish.
Sam and I waited and watched as Diana lowered her arms to her sides with a sigh.
However, we do have something to discuss.
Diana ran a hand through her hair and looked around the room, pressing her lips into a fine line.
So, about all of you participating in the war, you all obviously need to train.
Everyone nodded in agreement to Diana's statement. While we weren't battle-ready, we still needed to at least know how to defend ourselves. Diana, however, looked to me.
You, most of all.
Right, this is where I pick my trainer. Huh? Me? Why was I the odd one out? Let's skip ahead. Okay, I'm not gonna pick a trainer this time. I was fine on my own. Diana stared at me, slightly miffed and slightly in disbelief. Did she not believe me? I didn't ask as Diana pressed her lips into a fine line and looked to the others.
Very well. Do what you believe you should.
I shall. With that, Diana turned on her heel and left the room.
Finish eating. Afterwards, you should start training.
Can I train with the guys, then? Everyone in the room nodded their affirmation as Diana and Sarah left.
Well, it looks like we'll be busy for the next couple of days.
This'll be fun.
Man, training's gonna suck.
It'll be worth it, though.
Damien's right.
As we all finished eating, everyone left to either train or do things on their own. I left to start my own work, determined to be prepared for what was to come. The Demon Lord wasn't going to win. I wouldn't let him. Let's see how this goes now. So I chose to train on my own. It would not be an easy adventure, but I had practice in self-defense for my taekwondo. If I found a way to add magical energy to the mix, then I would be set. It seemed like a good idea until I managed to kick the bench and the bed frame a couple of times, resulting in a very sore foot. Gah! It was strange. Practicing my self-defense went normally as I've done before, yet I could tell that I was going to need some help. I left my room to wander the halls, curious as to what to do. Should I go to one of the rebels for advice? Should I find Diana? I wasn't entirely sure. I felt a bit discouraged, but I pressed forward, letting my feet guide me. Oh my! Well, I wasn't expecting to see that. Who are you? Eventually, I was led outside where a woman on a strange brown and red horse raced through an obstacle course. There were training dummies stationed around each turn, and the woman rammed her sword into each one as she rode by. I was quickly entranced. She looked so natural on the horse, and the way she cut through the dummies was downright breathtaking. I grew mildly envious of her skill. As she spotted me, however, she stopped and pulled the reins on her horse.
Whoa! Huh. You must be the human. You look much prettier than I imagined.
The woman quickly jumped down from her horse and walked over to me, smiling a kind smile my way as she approached. Wow. You're so pretty! Oops. Not what I wanted to do. Oh, hi! I didn't mean to disturb you or from your training or anything. I didn't want to stop her or distract her, but the woman waved her hand dismissively with a laugh.
It's alright. I needed a break anyway. I'm Mirth, friend. How can I help you?
Mirth. Interesting. I stared at her, surprised to see her being so cordial to me. Then again, I was a guest at the castle, and apparently gossip spread around that a human was staying for the duration of the war. It should not have been a surprise to see such manners. Still, I shook my head and smiled. It's nothing, truly. I just wanted to come out and explore. That's all.
Explore? How strange. Do humans often wander around on their own? I figured the Rebel Queen would have a bodyguard watch over you.
I shrugged a bit. It really wasn't a human thing. It was more of an angel thing. I had always naturally been curious, and the world I was in was full of new things to learn. I do, at least. I find it to be a good way to break away from day-to-day routine and take in the sights. Let your mind wander, you know? Mirth stared, nodding a bit, despite me seeing a slight distance in her eyes. She was a demon, after all, so the human mind was a little too different when it came to what we did and why. I smiled and looked around, seeing the strange purple sky above us and taking in the smell of the air. It really is nice out here, though. I almost wonder why I decided to train alone.
Huh? You're training alone? Why?
I looked over at Mirth, seeing her tilt her head at me in confusion. I shrugged a bit. I'm not really used to having someone train me, or maybe I didn't want to worry about someone watching me train, but I didn't want to bring any of the rebel leaders down.
Wait, they all offered to train you?
I nodded, seeing a glint of amazement form in her eyes. Yeah, they were all open to take me and train me to defend myself, but I already know how to fight, so I didn't want to take up their time. I'm sure they have much more to focus on and accomplish anyway. Mirth stared for a moment before nodding and straightening up, stretching back a bit.
Understandable, friend. Still, the rebel leaders are amazing fighters. They would have taught you a lot.
Do you really think so? With a nod, Mirth turned her head to the outskirts of the training ground we were in, ushering me to look over as well. In the distance, I could faintly see a large group of demons and beings clashing weapons and fighting like their lives depended on it. At the edge of it was Sergeant, standing cross-armed and firm as he watched on, concentrated on the group before him. Oh my, I'm getting all the pictures now. Huh. Okay, not saying anything, but girl on the left, if you gave her green eyes, she would look very much like Angel does in her demon form from that one ending. That's all I got to say about that. Interesting. Seeing them fight without fear or hesitation took my breath away. I could say nothing as I watched the blades and shields collide in chaotic but almost melodic harmony.
Those are the best of the best here in the Rebellion.
Huh? Really?
Yeah. All of those fighters rose up in the ranks and are now lower generals and captains, brought up to lead and train the rest of the army with the same tough love the commander gives them.
I looked over to see Mirth smiling fondly at the sight of the sparring. It made me a bit curious. What about you, Mirth? What are you in the Rebellion? Mirth finally broke away from the fight to look at me in surprise before giggling a bit.
I'm technically a lower general like them, but I lead the front lines while they lead the troops that back us up.
Why not train with them, though?
We have different strategies. My section is meant to be a wall of tanks and cavalry, pushing the enemy back and cutting down as many of their number as possible. Their sections are for when the enemy gets through my wall.
So you're the strongest of the generals? Mirth's face began to glow a soft crimson before she laughed.
No, we're all pretty equally strong. I've just been in the army long enough to know how to train on my own. It's not a big deal, really.
I nodded before looking back to Sergeant and the sparring he monitored. The generals in the field proved to hold their own in a fight, but against each other they were all evenly determined and skilled. Each had some sort of unique strategy, some form of attack they would rely on constantly to deliver results. The sight inspired me and made me wonder, what was my strategy? Mirth stepped up beside me and crossed her arms over her chest.
Look at them. All of those soldiers are fighting for the same cause. To stop the Demon Lord and bring peace to this world. That's why we're here.
Yeah. That's why we're all here. I lowered my head and glanced to the ground by my feet, remembering that I was here because of the Demon Lord, but not by choice. These demons more than likely came into the army fueled by their hatred for the Demon Lord and his tyranny. I felt small compared to them. They had a just cause, a selfless reason to fight and risk their lives for a better future in society, while I wanted to fight to get myself home. Was I being selfish for having my own reason to fight? Mirth looked over to me and placed a hand on my shoulder.
Human, if you want, I can help you train. I'm sure that I can get you battle ready in no time.
I looked up at Mirth in surprise. She would train me? From the look on her face, she was genuine in her offer to help me. I considered it for a moment. Did I want someone to help me after all? I'm kind of curious now, sure. Remembering the pain in my foot and the silliness trying to train on my own made me lean towards accepting her help. I nodded with a smile, placing my hand on hers with confidence. I would love some help. Thank you. Mirth returned my smile with her own and a nod.
It would be my pleasure, friend.
Taking a step away from me, Mirth walked over to her horse and ran her hands over his mane before looking back to me.
Go ahead and pick up a weapon. Something here should suit you. There's a barrel over there that has plenty of swords you can use and take for your own.
I took a good look around, spotting the mentioned barrel of swords ready to use. While fighting barehanded was something I was used to doing in Taekwondo, wielding a weapon would protect me better in this war. I mentally nodded at her suggestion before walking over and pulling out one of the swords. To my surprise, the blade was very light, almost like it was made of plastic. These couldn't have been real, right? What the... This is a sword? Mirth laughed and walked over to me, drawing out her own sword and swinging it around in her hands with ease.
It's light steel perfected right here at Lilith Castle. As weightless as a toy, but just as deadly as a common blade. Give it a couple of swings.
I grasped the hilt in both hands and took a swing, gasping as I saw the blade cut through the air as if it had proper weight. Whoa.
See? What did I tell you?
Drawing my eyes down the blade, I could tell it was well made, at least for training purposes. As my eyes darted around and landed on a nearby training dummy, another curious thought passed through me. I took a step forward, crouching low with the sword at my side, and charged forward, arching my blade out and slicing at the dummy with shocking ease. The cloth that was holding it together split apart, and the hay stuffing began to pour from the opening, revealing the hard wood that was keeping it upright. Mirth, impressed by my attack, dug her sword into the ground before applauding me with a grin.
Good job, human! Are you well trained in blade work?
I looked to Mirth and shook my head. While I had some sword training in Tai Chi, I was in no way actually proficient with a blade. Before my eyes, the dummy began to reshape and form itself back together, ready for another round of attacks. Yep, it was magical, and it was the perfect way to train. Mirth picked up her sword and stepped up to the dummy, grasping the hilt and staring hard at the immobile target.
Focus on your target and decide how you want to bring them down. Use every opening you can find and slice through the best one!
With a shout, Mirth lunged forward and ran her sword across the dummy's neck, effectively beheading it, sending the head flying and onto the ground. I stared, stunned to see that she had also caught off some of the wooden pole that held the dummy up. Mirth smirked and rested her blade on her shoulder, stepping back and looking to me as the mark reshaped itself.
See? Now you try.
With a smirk, I began to swing and practice, slicing and stabbing through my practice opponent with my new weapon. Mirth continued to spur me on, showing me different ways to cut down the dummy. For the entire week, I would continue this, perfecting a blade and learning how to cut down my enemies in any position and situation necessary. Mirth even began to move the dummy around to give me a moving target. After all, with time comes experimentation and practice.